Uh, Anyone who would like to go first?
Uh, Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Fine.
I will share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, if you could go into PowerPoint mode,
Yeah,
present.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Ketan Pawar. So the title of the presentation is the Sowing in Uncertainty, the Impact of Climate Change on Agriculture. Introduction. To begin with, everyone know the way we are getting impacted by the climate change and the way it has causing the catastrophic impact on everyone. Uh, I would like to just refer your fourth assessment report by the IPCC Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which has spoken about the coastal system and the low-lying areas are very much on the verge of facing risk throughout the 21st century, not just for a certain time. It is talking about the throughout the 21st century, it will be vulnerable beyond due to the global climate change. So, what does it mean by the climate change? So, it is basically a long-term shift in a temperature and a weather pattern. So, it may happen due to the natural activity like volcanic eruption or sun's activity, or maybe due to the human activity like burning fossil fuel, which has been the major cause of climate change. And recently, the way we have been using the resources not so in a judicious manner, that has caused the climate change all over the world. So, impact of climate change when we talk is basically we can see a change in frequency and intensity of the natural disaster. So, the kind of disaster which we have, their intensity and frequency has changed. Extreme weather event like this year also, and like almost developed or the global north also faced the heat wave like anything. Uh, Change in rainfall pattern. So that is also one of the impact of the climate change. Variation in seasons. Now, in a 1 day or 2 day, we can see all the season, be it winter, summer, raining. Everything is happening in the very short span of time. Uh, and now coming back to the agriculture, which is the title of my paper or the presentation, sowing in uncertainty, the impact of climate change on agriculture. So the agriculture and then coming to the Indian food production, it is highly vulnerable to the climate change because Indian agriculture is very much dependent upon the monsoon, and almost 65% of the India's crop area is rain-fed, which is monsoon. Uh, Coming literature review, these are some of the articles I have referred. Then why this study? So why do we well, like why one should study the impact of climate change on agriculture? Basically, we all eat food, we need food. Beside that, talking about the policy making level, we need to think why we need to study this topic. Recently, Supreme Court in M.K. Ranjit Singh and other versus Union of India has spoken about and expanded the scope of Article 14 and 21 to include right against adverse effect of climate change. So the way we have been behaving and the way we are burning the fossil fuel, climate change is going to be there for long period of time. So at least Supreme Court has come up forward to acknowledge the right against adverse effect of climate change. Then to build the community resilience. Basically, community is getting going to get impact and it is being impacted even now. So in order to build the resilience. Third, addressing policy gaps and improving local governance. Whatever policy and the statute we have that are not very much in not considered about the climate change. And even though there is a research wing or the research institute we have, which are conducting very much good research or about the climate change, but what about the implementation part? So we all need to see this in one go, like doing the research, understanding the policy gaps, and implementation. Like, are the farmer getting benefit of the research? Are they understanding the climate change and its impact, and how it is impacting their all efforts on the crop? Then international commitment. Article 51 of the Indian Constitution talks about we as an Indian, how we should abide by the international commitment or convention. So from that perspective, Sustainable Development Goal 2, which is about the food security, or the Paris Agreement, where we have given commitment for the temperature. Then CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity, which encourages the conservation of biodiversity, or the recently set the target of net zero emission of 2070. Considering all this point, uh, we need to study this topic in a more detailed manner. Uh, Methodology I have used for this research is a qualitative research. Data tool is in-depth interview and focused group discussion. Here, I have also developed the community climate resilience scale, which we will deal with which we will see in later. Units of research. I have conducted my research in Ratnagiri district, Ambeshet, and the Sakrinate village of Maharashtra. A sample size of the empirical study was 25 individuals from the Ratnagiri district. I have also visited Ratnagiri District Disaster Management Authority and the Nasne Gram Panchayat. I hope I'm audible throughout the presentation.
Yes, you were.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Now coming to the main part, like discussion and finding of the research. And here I will explain briefly about the community climate resilience scale. I will just zoom the screen. You can see these are the 8 parameters I have referred, and I have given to the each participants and asked their responses based on these 8 parameters. I will just read out for all. Awareness about the climate change, early warning system, social capital, economic stability after climate related disruption, climate induced displacement, disaster preparedness and response, government policies and support, and overall response. So all these 8 parameters have been I've made considering the impact of the climate change, how it is impacting the livelihood of the people, mostly farmers and fishermen. So in this scale, you can see a value of 4 indicate maximum resilience against the climate related disruption or climate induced disaster, uh, and one indicate the minimum resilience. If any participant answer like from 1 to 4, then 1 means minimum resilience, 4 means maximum resilience, and 2 is a balance. So you can see I have marked in the same manner, and the dark or the highlighted portion shows that much resilient the people are. Now, this the same format. I have made it in a tabular format for the understanding. So these same 8 parameters, and these are the responses people had given or the key participants had given. And here in the red color shows the minimum resilience, green shows the maximum resilience, and the white one shows the balance between the two resilience. And in the here average value on the right side of the screen, you can see average value of the each parameter after taking the responses based of each parameter. So you can see people do not have much awareness about the climate change. It is like average only is 1.8. Early warning system is 1.7. Social capital here I mean is that the bond or the like trust between the people when it comes to the helping each other. Then economic stability is 1.5. So like out of 4, economic stability is 1.5. So that shows how much economically unstable, or they are not that much stable, we can say. Disaster preparedness and response is 1.2. Government policies and support is 1.2 again, and the overall resilience is only 1.56. So that is the resilience overall when it comes to the climate change induced impact on the people. Here we are talking more about the farmers and fishermen. The same, this is for the 15 people, and this is for the 10 people. I have made two separate charts based on the category. First table is about the Ratnagiri farmers, and this is for the fisherman community. You can see again the same parameters, their responses, and based on that average value. Uh, Coming to the discussion, like how this whole thing is getting impacted, and uh, people or the farmers are getting like they are facing the losses. So agriculture overview, the major crop which are being produced in the Ratnagiri region is the mangoes. You must have heard as that Alfonso mango, cashew, coconut, erica nut, or rice. So how these all crops are getting impacted? The loss in income due to the climate-related events like uneven rain, change in season pattern. So all these things are impacting these crops. Just to tell you one example, which has been told me by the farmers, disturbance in initial cold. So whenever there is a flowering of mango is happening, there is a initial cold is required for the flowering. But due to the change in season pattern, that flowering for the Alfonso mango is not happening, which is leading to the loss in quality or the reduction in the quality of the mangoes, and then again leading to the loss in income for the farmers. uh, Climate and then loss in income, it is leading to the climate change induced migration. This migration is not directly about the due to the cyclone or flood or this climate induced extreme weather event, but it is more about the indirect where this whole thing is happening due to the climate change. Yes, definitely we can debate this whether it is due to the climate change or not, and it is still discussed or debated in through school of law. But climate change induced migration where people are moving away from their city or their native places and going to the other places in search of job or in search of better livelihood opportunity. So this way is also climate change is leading to the indirect migration or the climate change induced displacement, we can say, or the forced migration. All are the rhymes which we synonyms which we use. Then backwater in the coastal farming areas. So due to all this thing like the rise in sea level or the extreme like event like flood and cyclone, so the backwater in the sea, which is coming into the farming areas, so that basically water is salty, then it is leading to the or affecting the mangoes or rice cultivation. And coming to the cyclone impact, the Ratnagiri or the western coast of the India has seen cyclone like Spayan, Taukte, Nisarg, which has caused damage like anything. Affecting the physical infrastructure is like very much there, which can be seen by naked eyes. But what about the impact which is happening to the mango, cashew, and coconut, and the kind of compensatory mechanism we have, which is very much less, very less. Then coming to the Maharashtra, like units of research, like Ratnagiri, Maharashtra, when I visited the District Disaster Management Authority, uh, I could come to know that budget is definitely there for the disaster management, but there is very much less or absence of provision for the agriculture and how the agriculture or the farmer can be protected. And that I could also see or through the newspaper also in coming day in those days, that there is a lack of expertise about the climate change or integration of climate change and agriculture as such at the grassroots or at the district level. Sorry. Uh, Now coming to the suggestion and way forward. So these are the following suggestion or way forward I had come up with after going and understanding the farmers or the agriculture situation in Indian context. Uh, Standardized methodology for vulnerability assessment and climate smart agriculture. So we need to come up with the methodologies in order to assess the vulnerability which is there due to the climate change. Second, we need to institutionalize the continuous data collection at the micro level in India, India being the subcontinent country. Even though my years of research is more about the Ratnagiri, but I have tried to come up with the suggestion and way forward, like holistically, so that we can have something about the climate change and agriculture integration put together. So we need to have a continuous data collection at the macro level. The same macro level data can be used at the macro level, like in the large scale. at the national level for the policy formulation. Then third suggestion is that invest in the research and development for the locally adaptable crops and extreme event tolerant crop. So we need to come up with such a locally adaptable crops and then support farmers or give them some insurance to go for that crop, give them knowledge, equip them. And we also need to have a extreme event tolerant crop, be it a heat wave or drought or it's like heavy rainfall. We need to think of something like that crop where which can tolerate such extreme event in the coming times. Then promote location specific conservation technique. Again, like be it the western coast or eastern coast or a Gangetic plain or the Deccan Plateau, we need to have a location specific conservation technique when it comes to the dealing with the climate change. We cannot just delete the climate change. We have to adapt ourselves. We have to just try to mitigate in the one level, try to adapt at one level and protect the people. Like this is the map approach I had like just tried to formulate one uh, integrate climate change initiative with the national policies. So whatever policies we have, uh, what I could think of is that we need to have separate wing in each existing mechanism at least about the climate change. And even if it is there, then that is very, very good at some institute or at some research institute are there. But if not there, then we need to have each at least one wing about the climate change in each existing mechanism so that whatever the sector field and how it is getting impacted by the climate change that can be tackled or that can be dealt upon. Invest in human resource development and capacity building. So that's something we all are getting used to, or we are all still learning about the climate change, I would say. So such human resources can be developed or capacity building can be done so that there will be a manpower, woman power will be there so that we can have a solution for the climate change. Then international and regional partnership. We can have a international regional partnership. Internationally, we can have that the United Nations or WHO, and the regional wise, like talking about the global south, we can have a South Asian or the South East Asian collaboration, be it BRICS or a BIMSTEC. We can have some collaboration at the regional level also in order to like have a solution for the climate change because global south or the South Asian region is very much being impacted by the climate change induced extreme event. National Agriculture Climate Risk Management Fund. This is a fund I could think we can set up to deal with the climate risk management so that one institutional support will be there and the specialized institute is needed for the funding thing at the agriculture in agriculture field because almost 40 plus percentage of the Indian people are dependent upon the climate agriculture. So we need to have a national agricultural climate risk management fund, empowering local self-governance. Uh, so whatever the impact of the climate change or whatever the farming activity which are happening all at the grassroots level. So we need to empower the local self-governance, Panchayat Raj institution, so they can play an active role, be it about the funding, bottom-up approach we can come up with, empowering them through funding or empowering them through the specialized people or expertise can be the solution. And last but not the least, awareness and education about the climate change. We need to create awareness and education about the climate change, not just in the educational setup, but like every normal person or every common citizen should know about the climate change and how it is changing the like everything, every aspect of the life is being impacted by the climate change. Uh, Thank you. That's all. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Ketanji. I would now like to quickly request Bhargavi ma'am to kindly share her remarks. And with that, I would also like to notify all the fellows that first presentation has exceeded the time limit by a lot. We would appreciate if everybody sticks to the 5 to 7 time limit only, since we have a lot of presentations lined up. With that, ma'am, over to you. Please continue.
Priyanka, in the interest of time, should we listen to everybody and then take questions instead of me giving my remarks for each of it? That might take time. Is that okay?
Sure, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, we'll take questions at the end and then I'll wrap up, give my comments on all of it together instead of
Okay.
everyone, each and everyone.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you so much. With that, we'll proceed with the next presentation. Tanisha ji, if you're ready, please share your screen. Also, Tanisha ji, please take like 30 seconds to just introduce yourself as well, right when you're starting.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes, you're audible.
Okay. Screen share हो रही है?
No, we cannot see your screen. You've stopped sharing.
Okay, just a minute.
Now
Now
you,
it's visible?
yes.
Okay. So let me start. Myself, Tanisha, and my creative project theme is fast fashion, a global challenge. So shall I start now?
Yes, please do start.
Okay. See, one second. Okay. So my theme is fast fashion, a global challenge, but my creative project focus will be more on it is in India's context, how India can contribute to tackle fast fashion. So starting with defining fast fashion, its simple definition is it's a quick replication and mass production of clothes, textile. But I think that fast fashion is more than that, about the production, consumerism, manufacturing, raw material. These are some of the aspects that are being neglected by the government and the agencies. I think this is the reason why fast fashion is more concerned to India. Starting with fast fashion has lots of environmental challenges, starting with water and air pollution. So it contributes to 20% of industrial wastewater. Also, most of the clothes that we wear 5 years ago are made of cotton, silk, but now these are most of the time made of synthetic material that is mostly chemical based. It contributes to 8 to 10% of global carbon emission. It also contributes to wastewater, and it makes the water pollution more worse because it contributes to microplastic. Recently, it has been news that lots of illegal dyeing units are releasing chemical in Yamuna. That is one of the main causes of pollution in Yamuna. As we know that fast fashion or fashion industry is a very luxurious or a very capitalist industry. But behind the screen, there are lots of human exploitation there. Quoting some of the examples, this industry contributes to 75 million people employment, which were most of the women. This industry in 2020 resulted in 66 fires in factories, and these incidents happen regularly. There's one report also that indicates that fashion companies like New York and Next fund Russia war on Ukraine using polyester made from Russian oil. One example that realizes the situation is really difficult for us to tackle, that Atacama Desert in northern Chile, that is the driest place on earth, now is also a graveyard for fast fashion. And according to the government, there's only one solution of these textiles and fabric, it is to burn them. Moving forward, as I said, that my focus will be more on Indian handloom and handcraft sector. Quickly, I want to show what is the current situation of both the sectors. Government and NGOs has worked, but still lots of issues are there. Talking about handloom sector, there is low pay due to lack of demand that results in extreme poverty. There is a low working capital and lack of raw material in the sector. Of course, weavers lack education, so that results in marketing issues, technological backwardness, and lack of new designs. Young generation is very much not interested in the sector. That's why it is also a reason for not much development of handloom sector. Of course, it's a very profitable sector, knowing that. Weavers mostly suffer from many muscular diseases like musculoskeletal disorder. And Indian handloom sector is very much depended or very much contributed with women, but they are not recognized. They are considered as secondary workers and they are illiterate. There's one case study that I got from Trivandrum that there is a shelter where 8 to 10 rooms work, like they only produce, but they're extremely close. Their shelters are open, there are unfinished roofs, and shades are of tin sheets. Now, when we know the climate situation is highly difficult with extreme heat and humidity, this makes situation very, very difficult for them to work and has, of course, impact on their health. Talking about the handicraft sector, it is a basically very decentralized sector. There is a raw material scarcity. I want to quote one example here that there is a pith plant, but now it's getting, due to this scarcity, pith art is moving towards endangered. Of course, there is some way or another way, there is climate change due to the scarcity of pith plant. Again, there is a low income. Artists are not aware of pricing strategies. Pricing completely depends on customers' perspective. Lack of financial support is there because they're not documented. They are mostly informal sector. No uniformity in quality. Young generation lack interest, and inadequate potential of branding the products. So, and at the time of globalization, it is very important to brand the product. There's one statement by Craft Council of India 2011. They said that handicraft is the second largest source of employment in the country after agriculture. Yet India had industries. This industry are in a crisis of misunderstanding. Because we are here mostly for environmental challenges, so here I want to bring out some environmental challenges in both the sectors. Cotton, it is widely used. It is not a natural fabric. Most of 99% of synthetic fertilizers are used in cotton production. That is 16% of one insecticides are used. Silk production, in which cocoons are boiled, it is mostly disapproved by animal welfare institutions. While the processing, dust and mist is generated that leads to respiratory diseases. During dyeing, painting, steam is generated, which contains carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and sulfur. That brings mortality to eyes, reduced senses, and fog. High quality of solid and liquid waste is generated. Noise pollution that influences the audio framework of weavers. Natural fibers, of course, it leads to filling landfills that lead to production of methane.
Tanisha ji, you have 1 minute to wrap up.
Okay, ma'am. Just give me 1 minute. Okay. Let's move forward. So here in this slide, I have been some sustainable practices of both the sectors. In raw material like Nirmal twice, these are made of koniki woods, right? They are very ecological and they are locally available. There's other examples as well, like dhokra craft. Okay, at the place of production in Andhra Pradesh, when Nirmal toys are made, they are made at the time of wood cutting, so the waste can be reduced. Lappam paste, it is also it's a very eco-sustainable paste. When local clay is used to join parts of toys, they use wood. So we can say that most of the material in these sectors are locally available and renewable. Of course, that with that handicraft sector is less intensive than industrial processes. If I talk about the finished raw material, so again here I want to tell that if we use powder paints of industries, they are basically chromium, lead, and that are very dangerous for children's health. So at their place, like Nirmal toys are good options. Wrapping up, there are lots of solutions for this for both the sectors, but with the limit of time, I want to highlight two here. That if that we know that handicraft is locally available material and they're less energy consumer and consumed, they are usable, reusable, minimal infrastructure is needed, and they are resource intensive, toxic free. If these things are realized by consumers, if then their consuming pattern can be changed. They will promote their Indian handicraft sectors, as we have like our culture center of Ambani Group. It is also promoting. Then there are 4 P's of production of at this time, like for businesses or for promoting any sector: production, price, place, and promotion. First three, former three, have been very much supported by government and non-government agencies. Um, but at the last thing, form the promotion, that is very crucial at the time of globalization. If this is for, we need sustainable in this world. We need to promote Indian handicraft and handloom sector. That's all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Tanisha ji. Since we'll be having all of the presentation remarks towards the end of all of the presentations, now we'll be proceeding further with the next fellow. Nishchint ji, if you're here, I'm ready to share screen on your behalf.
Yes, please share my screen, Priyanka ji.
Nishchint ji, please introduce yourself and then you have 5 minutes. I will be unmuting and informing you that the 5-minute time is up. All right.
Okay. So, my name is Nishchint Srivastav, and I'm a former consultant in IQVIA in the project of Swachh Bharat Mission. And I have done my bachelor's from Government College of Architecture and MTech from Urban Development Management from TerrySAS. And my thematic is analysis of environmental, social, and governance dynamics in Ganga Yamuna River ecosystem, Prayagraj, Uttar Pradesh. Can you please play the video? This is the video I've taken in Earthcom in 2019 in Prayagraj, and these are the Siberian cranes that visit the floodplains during the Kumbh Mela, Ardh Kumbh Mela, or Magh Mela annually, which happens in the Prayagraj. Please. So I would like you all to please draw attention to this flow chart. This flow chart tries to tell that climate change, which is a natural occurrence in the life cycle of Earth, which happens and poses some impacts and vulnerability, which hinders the socio-economic development, which in turns trigger the climate change process driver, which accelerate the climate change, and the vicious cycle goes on. Next, please. So, coming to the Universal Declaration of Rights of Rivers, these are the rights of rivers that is given by Earth Law Center. And I want to highlight these laws are in the interest for the river ecosystem health and the fundamental rights devolved to the rivers. And I want to highlight the fifth point, that is maintains that in order to ensure full implementation and enforcement of these rights, each river shall be entitled to the independent appointment of one or more legal guardians that act solely on behalf of the river's rights and who may represent the river in any legal proceeding or before any governmental body empowerment to effect it, with at least one legal guardian being an indigenous representative for those rivers upon which indigenous communities traditionally depend. I would like to quote the example of Tehri Dam and Narmada Dam, which was led by Medha Patkar and Baba Amte. And the Tehri Dam was led by Sundar Bahuguna, and with a lot of international and national attention, these andolans did not achieve any significant success. And the last point, I would also like to highlight the last point, which goes in the same pattern. Next, please. Taking cue from the previous slide, Uttarakhand High Court issued a declaration in March 2017 that the Ganga Yamuna River, along with with their tributaries, to be juristic legal person, living entities having the status of a legal person. And the court appointed 3 specific officials: the Chief Secretary, the Advocate General of Uttarakhand State, and the Director of Namami Gange as guardians in loco parentis. Within 5 months, within few months of the decision, Supreme Court in New Delhi ordered a stay due to the following reasons: that if Ganga were to be the granted legal personhood with appointed official guardians, the state would become in effect both a violator of Ganga's personhood as well as an accessory to violations, and at the same time would be charged with protecting Ganga. The next was while stating officials with would face liability for failing to protect the Ganga. The High Court ruling made no provision for the state support to them legally or financially. The another point was that legal risk to Ganga, possible legal risk to Ganga as an legal entity. That if river could sue those defiling it, then the river itself be sued for violating the rights of others. For example, in the case of in the case of floods, riverbank erosions, etc. Also, Ganga's legal personhood did not provide for it to manage or control its own water. And also in Uttarakhand, there is a small part of Gangetic Plain through which the river flows on its own way to Bay of Bengal. The much larger and the more far populous states of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Jharkhand and West Bengal could well be harmed depending on what upstream rivers guardians might impose. But Sukna Lake in Chandigarh has tried to adopt the rights of legal personhood and had been in experimental mode only rather than being a role model. Next, please. These are my research questions and objectives. Uh, Due to lesser time, I would like to highlight the research questions. That first question is, what is the issues prevailing in Ganga Yamuna river ecosystem from the social, environmental, and governance perspective? And what are the policy interventions taken to improve the ecosystem of the study area? And how can we prepare for Ganga Yamuna river ecosystem for further degradation and climate change? And the research objective mentions are in the purview of the same research questions. Next, please. So I have identified problems in the domain of environmental, social, and governance dynamic. I have the ecosystem. I have divided the ecosystem to rivers, floodplains, and wetlands. And these are some of the problems that are being identified. And the sources for problem identification is various newspaper articles. I wanted to highlight some of the major problems like non-compliance of environmental laws, like the factories and the tanneries. They don't have proper drainage system, and most of the STPs are made operational only at the time of audit. And in the perspective of social and governance, fisheries are banned in some of the stretches to meet pollution mitigation and biodiversity conservation. Therefore, fishermen are not being able to pursue their profession and are being compelled to poach for their survival. And for some months of the year, they do fishing, and for rest of the months they are doing some work in labor.
Christian ji, you have 1 minute to wrap up.
Okay, next please. So the existing gaps in policy frameworks. First is a lack of sufficient legislation on the protection of the rivers. This is due to the mismatch between policies of various ministries that govern rivers, such as Ministry of Jal Shakti, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Power, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. The next is disconnected approach to the connected nature of rivers. The volume of Ganga, Yamuna, and the major rivers in India comes from the 60% of the volume of these rivers come from its tributaries. So it is very much important to look on the tributaries also. And the government of India formulated several policies and rules concerning water management and conservation. The National Water Policy in 1987, 2002, 2012, with wetland conservation and management rules, focus on water allocation and pollution control, flood management, and promoting livelihoods only. But the policy of national environmental policies of 2006 recognizes the interconnectedness nature of rivers and outlines the integrated management approach for the river basins. But this policy was dissolved in favor of National Ganga Council in 2016. And the next is inadequate protection to the river ecosystem. In this, in this, the government has enacted several environmental laws to fulfill its commitment to international agreements, including the Wildlife Protection Act, Environmental Protection Act, and National Environmental Policy. These laws designate various protection areas such as Ramsar sites, biosphere reserves, and World Heritage sites. Currently, India has 870 protection areas covering 5% of the country's area, but rivers, crucial habitats for wildlife, are not adequately represented in this framework. Rivers receive protection only incidentally when they flow through terrestrial protected areas. And also, studies highlighted that protected areas along the Ganga River provide relatively undisturbed habitats and support significant aquatic species population. Despite this, less than 10% of the entire Ganga River is formally protected. There are 6 protected areas along Ganga, with only 2 specifically designated as riverine protected areas. There are cases of Varanasi Turtle Sanctuary and Vikramshila Gangetic Dolphin Sanctuary. And also, there is a problem that some endangered species like Gangetic dolphins, most of the habitats are not accorded the same level of protection. Apart from these, there is a greater need for cross collaboration between physical science and social science discipline to build policies that can truly address both the environmental and social dimensions of the Ganga, Yamuna, and river ecosystem. And there are many community-based solutions that do not require state or central initiatives. And alternatively, we should look at the frameworks that require and that needs a bottom-up approach rather than top-down approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishchanji. Next, we have Deepanita ji. If you're ready, please share the screen.
Yes.
Please do introduce yourself, and then you have 5 minutes. I will be unmuting myself and informing you.
Okay. Is the screen visible?
Yes.
Okay. So hi, good evening, everyone. So I am working as a research associate for the International Center for Research on Women, and I have previous experience, particularly in the gender and climate action space. So this is one of the key areas of my work is commons, land-based common pool resources and community practices or community livelihoods. So my presentation and my submission is based around that. And the title is Commons and Pastoral Livelihoods Through Practitioners' Lens, an exploration of key trends and challenges. The idea being that amongst the main user groups or stakeholders who would benefit from the commons or be using the commons, we have the government on one hand and the communities on the other. And the practitioners are kind of building a link or a bridge between the two, so that angle needs to be explored. My key research question would be, what are the key trends in the management and use of commons for pastoral livelihoods as observed by practitioners? And subsumed within that are the aspects of traditional knowledge, gender division of labor, cultural practices, and of course, pastoral livelihoods. Also, how do external factors like climate change, migration patterns, and market dynamics all affect the livelihoods of communities? Briefly, to explain what commons are, though we have spoken about it, CPRs include natural and human-made systems. So you could be looking at a road or a government property and think that is also commons, but so are the natural ecosystems like forests, grazing lands, pastures, and lakes. So the focus here is on common pool land resources, which is a subset within that. And we have the prominent works such as the one by Eleanor Ostrom, who has focused on the management of commons specifically. So for this qualitative study, so it's still work in progress, but what is being done is looking at the emergent themes from the various organizations such as Center for Pastoralism, Antra, Marab, which have been working with these communities and on common land restoration for ages, and looking at their documents, publicly available documents, to glean what their experience has been and what are the key trends that they're pointing towards, and sort of relaying those themes forward. Going towards common property resources, land-based common property resources in Indian context. So this is a paper by Chopra and Dasgupta from 2002, which stated that around 70 million hectares, or nearly 21% of our landmass, can be categorized as CPRs. But as to who holds the reins for governance of this land, 25 million hectares is under the Forest Department, but 45 million hectares is under the Revenue Department and the panchayats. So that is like, we'll come to the challenges, but that is clearly like one challenge of when we say commons governance, what do we mean and who really holds the control? Because it's often not the community, especially not the people whose livelihoods is dependent on it. The states, the location that the study focuses on, and the organizations' work in these regions will be looked at. So the states are Rajasthan and Gujarat, because also the NSSO 1999 stated that Rajasthan has the highest proportion of landmass under CPRs, and that is closely followed by Gujarat at the second place. To give a bit of context on the Rajasthan land use patterns with regard to commons, so the Rajasthan Tenancy Act 1955 is central to it. So earlier, Rajasthan had princes and colonial rule and land use pattern determined under different kind of regimes and customary rights for villagers, which was slowly with the British coming and then also leaving and us deciding our own territories, turned into a system of khatedari versus non-khatedari land. So all pastures were categorized as non-khatedari. Khatedari meaning cultivable land which is used for agriculture primarily and which has been notified for it. Whereas grazing land was recorded as, de jure charaga land, private khatedari, or unoccupied land, which would then be, in local parlance, it's called the Savai Chak, but it's west with the state government. The problems with so many categories are that commons are subsumed under each category, and therefore the locals may not be aware of it, but their governance and the kind of use that they are put to is constantly changing. So for instance, Rajasthan's Panchayati Raj Act of 1953 gives the reins and the controls to the panchayat for the governance of commons, but the Tenancy Act overrides it. The 55 Act overrides it and says that no, if it's a de facto grazing land, then it will have a separate set of rules and it's coming under the state government. So it becomes Savai Chak, and the state can decide what to do with that land, despite the 53 Act saying that panchayats and the village council will decide what to do with the land. So these kind of, this is just to show that these are the kind of spaces, gaps, lacuna that within which the common land governance functions, and within which the livelihoods of these pastoralist communities are also functioning, because they're so closely linked to the land.
Vipanita ji, please conclude in 1 minute.
Sure. So by way of evidence, I do not have a very detailed thematic analysis right now to present, but I will just present these two or three examples. For example, Madhari Rural Action Group has been working for close to 2 decades with the communities in Little Run of Kutch. They have this event, the annual event, the Maldhari Sunset, which is one way of bringing all the pastoralist groups together, where they voice out their challenges, their demands, and also the people from administration come, and then they discuss how to take the things forward, and it's a parliamentary style gathering. On the other hand, FES is an organization that's looking at systems approach and ecological conservation to promote rural livelihoods for pastoralist groups. So their involvement, as it appears, is mostly around natural resource management and going in through MG and REGs and village institutions. Center for Pastoralism has a different kind of approach, where they're directly looking at the sale of products from, pastoralist and livestock, pastoralist livelihoods and livestock rearing. So they had the Desi Oon initiative, for instance, with more of on which will be explored in the submission. So to conclude, first of all, the local parlance around commons needs to be understood. For example, in Rajasthan, it is known as Shamlat. And that is very different from the idea of English commons, which also Ostrom was looking at when she was talking about the commons. So, but we do have local words and local understanding, and along with it, traditional cultural practices which are related to it. So the idea of commons and commoning in the context of traditional livelihoods needs to be understood holistically. We also do not have a national policy on commons. So pasture land, barren wastelands, they're all redirected for, say, mining, agricultural use, privatization. This is again linked to what we discussed around the Tenancy Act, for example, in Rajasthan. Commons governance is also spread across multiple government departments. For instance, some land is under revenue department, some under forest department, and some under the Panchayati Raj department, and they do not speak to each other. Pasture land has traditionally formed a link between nomadic and settled communities. The Gujars are a very good example of that. But due to the commons shrinking and privatization coming up and urbanization coming up, so the livelihoods are threatened for these communities. Specifically, we should think about the youth amongst the pastoralist groups. We need to acknowledge what their aspirations are and how could we, if possible, incentivize traditional livelihoods for them. And finally, Ostrom's 8-point rule for management of commons can lead to management effectively by village institutions. But for that, we do need support and all players coming together instead of working in silos, as is the norm right now. So yeah, with that, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipanita ji. Next up, we have Abhay ji. If you're ready, please share your screen and introduce yourself, and then you have 5 minutes.
I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, it is. You can go full screen.
Yeah. Yeah, myself, Abhay Menon. I am actually a student of class 12. I just got out of school this year and I'm about to join my undergrad at Azim Premji University. I'm pursuing BSc Honors Environmental Science and Sustainability. So to start with, I have chosen the topic illegal sand mining and waste disposal and its impact on the Kerala coast, understanding the environmental and social consequences. Overview. Illegal sand mining has emerged as a significant environmental issue, particularly affecting the coastal regions and the relevant.
You have not yet entered the slideshow, so we can't see the slide changing.
I have.
Yeah, if you just resume slideshow.
Is it not visible?
No, we can see your screen, but you're not in the slideshow mode, and so we cannot see your overview slide.
How am I supposed to do that?
Can you just resume slideshow? You've opened a dialog box, right?
Slide control.
No, I can see a dialog box is opened up. You just do the slideshow there. Or you can click on from beginning as well.
Wait a minute, I can't. Dialog box is open.
Please try to reshare. I think your screen is stuck for some reason. So just stop share and then try again.
Yeah, is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible now.
It's not moving. Okay. Now? Hello?
We have entered the working mode again. Can you see at the bottom towards the right-hand side? Right, there are three, you can see three little icons.
Yeah.
Actually, just continue like this. I think there's some system problem.
Okay.
But you'll have to shuffle the slides, like you'll have to click on number 2 and number 3, like, and so on.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I'll go back. Share. Okay, in overview, the illegal sand mining has emerged as a significant environmental issue, particularly affecting the coastal regions. The relentless extraction of sand from the beaches, rivers, and seabeds poses a severe ecological and socio-economic challenge, and this practice is driven by a high demand for sand in the construction industry, but its repercussions on the environment and human lives are profound and far-reaching. Regarding environmental degradation, the most immediate impact of illegal sand mining is the environmental degradation. Coastal ecosystems are delicate and play a crucial role in maintaining biodiversity, protecting shorelines, and supporting local economies through fishing and tourism. Sand acts as a natural barrier against erosion and extreme weather events. When sand is removed indiscriminately, it leads to the destabilization of these natural barriers, causing increased coastal erosions, habitat destruction, and loss of biodiversity. The socio-economic consequences of this are for communities living along the coast, the ramifications of illegal sand mining are devastating. Erosion caused by sand removal can result in loss of property and land. House, infrastructure, and agricultural land are increasingly at a risk of being swallowed by the advancing shorelines. This not only displaces families but also disrupts the local economies that are heavily dependent on the coastal resources. The degradation of the coastal ecosystem directly impacts their livelihoods. Fisher folks, for instance, suffer from the depletion of fish stock as their breeding grounds are being destroyed. Tourism, another major economic activity in the coastal areas, is severely affected because of severely affected as beaches become eroded and less attractive to the visitors. Consequently, the income and the food security of the coastal communities are jeopardized and leading to increased poverty and social instability. And then we have the health and safety concerns. The health and safety of the local populations are also compromised. Erosion and sedimentation caused by illegal sand mining can contaminate the water sources with heavy metals and other pollutants, posing serious health risks. Additionally, structural integrity of the buildings and infrastructure is threatened, increasing the likelihood of accidents and injuries. Regulatory and enforcement challenges. Despite the clear environmental and social costs, illegal sand mining persists due to weak regulatory frameworks and enforcement mechanisms. Corruption, lack of awareness, and insufficient resources for monitoring the policy and policing contribute to the difficulty in curbing the illicit activities. Effective measures to combat illegal sand mining requires robust laws, stringent enforcement, and community involvement. Mitigation strategies. Illegal sand mining represents a significant threat to coastal environment and well-being of coastal communities. The unsustainable extraction of sand leads to the environmental degradation, economic hardship, and health risks. Addressing this issue demands a multifaceted approach involving stringent regulation, community engagement, and sustainable alternatives to sand in construction. Only through comprehensive and coordinated effort can mitigate the detrimental effects of illegal sand mining and protect the livelihoods of those on the seashores. Conclusion and call for action. The summary of the key points are that illegal sand mining and improper waste disposal are causing severe environmental and social impact on Kerala's coast, and the collective action is crucial for preserving the coastal environment. Call for action. Engage in local cleanup efforts, advocate for stricter regulations, and support sustainable practices. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhayji. That was really on point. Next up, we have Meghaji. Meghaji, if you're ready, please share your screen, introduce yourself, and I'll inform you at the 5-minute mark. Meghaji, are you ready to share your screen?
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen.
Okay.
Hello everyone. My name is Megha Mahajan. I'm currently working as a senior executive in an ESG consultancy firm. My presentation is like not very much technical. I just took help of some photos to explain my topic. Uh, we all are aware of how global climate change is creating devastating crises on our planet. Rising temperatures, elevated frequency of extreme weather events like floods, hurricanes, cyclones, drought, polluted air, water are worsening the existing social, economical, and environmental conditions. But like, do but do you think we are the ones bearing the worst of climate change? I know it sounds a bit strange, but you'll get to know by the end of my presentation why I asked this question. Uh, but for now, let's have a look at some pictures capturing a glimpse of climate disasters in my city during the last few years. Last year in July, the water level in Yamuna reached its highest record, crossing the danger mark. And I, as a citizen of Delhi, was aware of the flood situation, but my daily activities were not hampered much due to the floods. However, this picture shows a totally different story. Like people residing near the Yamuna River gather and assemble all their stuff in a single place. The picture only depicts how people are trying to safeguard their belongings, but we cannot even imagine the extent to which their livelihoods have been impacted in reality. Now let's have a look at another picture where the slum dwellers whose houses got submerged are relocating themselves to a supposedly secure place. But is that secure place going to provide them with a roof over their heads, which they created for themselves after years of effort and hard work that just vanished in 2 to 3 days? And what all they are receiving is tarpaulins and packet of milk in the name of help from the government in those secure places. Now, what they are left with is no option to accept wait for water levels to be seen in order to get back to their normal lives. This is not going to remain so normal after this flood. Crisis, we all have been hearing about disaster. Delhi faced an extended period of intense heat wave, making all the daytime temperatures were extremely high, leaving people who struggle with continuous distress. I've had access to every cooling facility during this period, but still getting out even for 5 years like what sorry. Here's the next slide showing workers at landslide grappling with rubbish and toxic substances. These individuals are
Meghaji, your audio is not clear.
am I clear now?
Yes.
These individuals are working under the scorching sunlight, facing not just extreme heat, but also significant health risks. Adding to this, landslides can easily catch fires, which obviously leaves toxic fumes spread in the air, causing breathing difficulties to people working there and living nearby. One cannot even imagine how they are surviving under such deleterious conditions where their health is at such high risk. The this picture speaks volumes about what heat wave is leading to. This heat stroke patient waiting for treatment reveals how heat related illness disproportionately being taken care of. I think now you all have got an answer to the question I asked at the beginning of my presentation. Because it's clear that people are experiencing such injustices all over the globe. Climate change consequences are not same for everyone. And here comes my topic into the play, which is call for a climate justice, attempting to bring awareness about the necessity for climate justice approach. Now, let's look at what climate justice is. Climate justice means putting equity and human rights at the core of decision making and action on climate change. This approach suggests that the responsibilities in addressing climate change should be divided according to who is contributing most to the problem while addressing systematic, socio-economic, and intergenerational inequalities. Um,
Megha ji, please wrap up in 1 minute.
Yeah, yeah, I'm just done. Running fronts of time, I've not mentioned much in here, but like my research essay put light on the potential and challenges in achieving climate justice in India. All I want to say is that as the impacts of climate change are becoming more pronounced with time, climate justice calls on all of us to recognize our own privilege in the way we campaign and mobilize for a just and equitable future. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Megha ji. With that, we'll proceed to the next presentation. Anushan ji, if you're ready, we'll have your
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm
presentation
sharing
next.
them.
Yeah. Please do introduce yourself.
Yeah, just a minute. I'll share it in a moment. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it is.
Greetings of the day to one and all. I am Anushan Ray, an alumnus of the UG BSc Honours Program at the Department of Environmental Studies, MSU Baroda. Now I will be presenting on my research work titled Ecosystem Services in Times of Changing Climate, a portrait of twin cyclones and people of Sundarban's mangrove. Sundarbans is one of the hotspots of global climate change and has potential to be severely affected by climate change induced. Excuse me?
Please continue.
Yeah. Affected by climate change induced environmental hazards such as sea level rise, salinity intrusion, rainfall variability, increase in frequency and intensity of storms, storm surges, and river floods. Temperature rise and coastal erosion, land accretion, and subsidence. These changes will slow development process and elevation of poverty in the coastal region, which in turn will aggravate both social and environmental adversities of the region. Mangroves provide several important benefits in the form of ecosystem services, and these have significant economic values. Storm protection associated with cyclonic wind buffering and surge attenuation are important services yielded by the disturbance prevention structure and functions of the mangrove ecosystems. Mangrove conversion activities for developmental projects more than often overlook and disregard this service and the associated economic loss. In times of a changing climate with aggravated and aggressive hydrometeorological hazards, rising sea level and shrinking shores, the protection provided by mangroves from climatic hazards gains immense importance. The study determined the damages caused and estimated the cyclone damage avoided in 4 islands of the Indian Sundarbans with Cyclone Amphan of May 2020 and Cyclone Yas of May 2021 as the references. Damages caused and monetary loss incurred with regards to houses, agriculture, and fisheries, livestock, and other personal assets were estimated relative to the socio-economic profile of the area. Tree damage was estimated along with assessment of the level, extent, and duration of flooding. The cumulative impacts of the 2 cyclones and the long-term effects were estimated using a group of 16 variables. Comparative study between 2 groups were carried out. One group being of 2 mangrove shaded islands, as is visible over here. These are the green ones are the mangrove shaded islands, and the orange ones are the mangrove non-shaded islands or the islands which do not have mangrove shade. Mangrove shade was defined as the presence of mangrove vegetation on at least 3 sides of the islands individually and adjacent dense mangrove patches. So as you can see, this island named Moshuni and G-plot, they don't have adjacent mangrove islands, but this lot has this Susni Island and Luthian Wildlife Sanctuary Island as mangrove shades. So in this study, we compared the economic damages in both these sets, and we tried to assess whether the presence of the mangrove prevented any or yielded a prevention from an economic damage or not. And this socioeconomic attitude surveys were conducted in a door-to-door manner in 50 households in each of the 4 islands, thus the sample space being of 200. And these were the results of the study. The high-speed winds damaged the houses with varying intensity in Cyclone Amphan. Most mud and thatch houses were completely damaged beyond repair. Residential damage was more in the not mangrove shaded islands as indicated by the variables. And we could see that crop loss was there, varied severely among the villages depending on prevalent agricultural season and type of crops grown. For Cyclone Amphan, however, no significant difference in damage cost incurred per household was observed between the mangrove shaded and the not shaded islands. For mangrove shaded, the average cost of damage per household was 1,49,067 rupees. And for the mangrove not shaded islands, the average cost per household was 1,40,941 rupees. However, significant difference were noted in the case of Cyclone Yas. The damage cost per household for unshaded islands was almost half that of the damage cost per household for unshaded islands. For the value being for unshaded islands being 77,493, and that for the unshaded islands being 1,61,637, thus highlighting almost a double value. Now, I also took an assessment of the long-term impacts of the cumulative damage of these two cyclones, as these two cyclones happened on an interval of 1 year, exact 1 year. So I took certain variables and tried to assess what were the long-term impacts of these cyclones standing at 2023 when the study was conducted. The long-term impacts of the frequent cyclones is severe for both the livability and livelihood of the inhabitants of Sundarbans. More than 50% of the respondents have reported long-term adverse impacts such as those of high soil salinization and subsequent fertility loss of both agricultural fields and ponds. The economic bargain involved in the process and repeated losses has caused some farmers to discontinue agriculture. Some have been forced into other occupations due to loss of productivity. Aquaculture status has also seen changes, drop in agricultural income, and income from aquaculture clearly shows that the brunt is being borne.
Anushanji, 1 minute to conclude.
Yeah, conclusion and environmental significance. Various stakeholders such as the local community, government and non-government concerns, the policy makers and the executive often fail to understand the conclusions which scientific research draws. Ample studies are there to clearly state that the state of environment is in dire straits. Several ecologists and economists are of the opinion that unless the perils of environmental degradation are depicted in monetary terms, this communication gap cannot be bridged. Coastal wetlands provide a range of valuable ecosystem services, including protecting coastal communities from storms. Consequently, the already significant benefits from protecting and restoring coastal wetlands will become increasingly important and valuable in the future. The results of this study justify much larger investments in conservation and restoration of coastal wetland, as it shall enhance human well-being and welfare, ensuring safety, security, and sustainability. These are some of the literary articles I have referred to for conducting secondary research pertaining to this original work. Thank you, and I'll be glad to attend to the questions asked at the end of the session.
Thank you so much, Anushanji. With that, we proceed with the next presentation. Maria Ji, if you're ready, please share your screen and introduce yourself.
Yes, I am ready. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible. However, if you're sharing the screen, we cannot see.
Can you see my screen now?
No, actually, we cannot. If you want, you can share the presentation with us and I can share on your behalf.
1 second.
Let Mariaji try. Mariaji, go to share screen.
Yeah,
A new window is popping up.
yes. There's an option
Then,
to screen broadcast and start broadcast.
then select the PPT file. After clicking on share screen, then a new window will pop up. Then can you see the PPT file? Is the PPT file open?
Actually, I wanted to share from Canva. My slide
No
is in.
problem. Okay, so share screen and then go to your Canva. If it is in browser or in your app, just
Sure.
go there.
Doing that. Let me know if it's visible now.
Yes.
Sure. Thank you. Good. Okay. So sorry about that technical glitch. Hi, everyone. I am Maria. I'm a lawyer. Sorry. Yes. So this presentation is on Kutanad. This is about the place that I come from. I know the heading is written as Ende Kutanad, which in Malayalam it means my Kutanad. So this is basically an attempt of mine to understand my immediate surroundings. So just a disclaimer that it's not going to be very technical. It's something that's very personal, and this has come out from my quest to understand, the immediate surroundings around me. So yeah, just to give you an introduction into Kutanad. Kutanad is a place that is, it's actually a region that spans over 3 districts in Kerala. And it's a deltaic formation of 5 major rivers in Kerala. So you can imagine this place as this bowl-shaped islands of land, which is interconnected with well-networked waterways. There's canals and lakes, and it's situated on the Vempanad called wetland, which is identified as the wetland of international importance and the Ramsar Convention. And this area is situated in the transitional space between land and the sea. So there's patches of mangrove forest, there's land of wet marshy lands, wetlands. So this entire area is a biodiversity hotspot. So there's this area is like a breeding space for migratory birds, aquatic fishes, and other animals as well. Also, this area, the Kutanad, is considered as India's only farming where farming is conducted below sea level. So the farming is made possible below 1 to 2 meters of sea level. And this area and the specific agriculture is identified as globally important agricultural heritage system by FAO. So this is just a brief introduction about Kutanad, and I want to play a short video for all of you. This is from my house, like from my just in front of my house, and I want all of you to share with me your thoughts after seeing this brief video. Yeah, so that's it. So does anybody want to share your thoughts on what do you think this is about, or if you want to unmute yourself and tell me what does this video make you feel like? Anybody? Even
Yes,
though
yes, I want to say
Sorry.
that it's very natural.
It's very
Yes,
natural.
very close to
It's very
nature.
green, right? It
Very
looks very
close to
green,
nature.
right? and very beautiful, right? So
Right.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll just move on to the next slide now. So what if I tell you that under all that greenery that you saw, there are a lot of fishes and snakes and frogs and aquatic animals that are dying? Simply because it's the greenery that you saw, it's weeds, it's invasive species of Kariba weed that you just saw, which basically blocks the entry of sunlight and oxygen into the water, which adversely affects the aquatic life of the area. So this is also an invitation for all of you to look into your surroundings more deeply. Sometimes what may occur as beautiful to us, there could be hidden things underneath that. So yes, deep diving into what I really want to address. I want to address the invasive species, that is mostly the Kariba weed and water hyacinth in the area, which you can see. The first picture is that of my dad and my nephew and niece. You can see water hyacinth all around. And the third picture is that of the the flower of water hyacinth. It's really beautiful, I know, but it's just growing where it's not supposed to grow. So, which takes me to my next slide, which is understanding these problems led me into understanding the history of the place, how this land, the huge, like Kutanad spans over 50,000 acres of land. And these lands were traditionally, I think from 19th century, the reclamation of Vembanad Lake started. And there was a mass reclamation of the land for agriculture and for human inhabitants, which is continued till date. Even though the laws exist now, there is illegal ways of converting land for human inhabitants. And added to that is the Green Revolution. Green Revolution introduced high-yielding varieties of seeds to the farmers who were traditionally using traditional varieties of seeds. And these new seed varieties were intensive on water use, and they required high use of fertilizers and pesticides. So that in turn affected the water and the soil resources of the area. And talking about this area, I cannot talk about the problems of the area without talking about the problems of the humans there. This place is very prone to flood and is culturally and economically very significant because this is a place majority occupied by farmers, and most of these farmers are from low income people. Moving on. So looking at the policies and development of Kutanad has a lot of problems spanning from climate change to floods to farmers' problems, but most of the problems of Kutanad were trying to address by putting the focus on agriculture, trying to improve the agriculture of the land, which led to the
fragmentation. 1 minute to conclude.
Sure. Fragmentation of the land, and this has in turn affected the biodiversity and has affected the water quality. And these are some of the structural interventions done by the government to solve the problems of the farmers of the area, which were flowed right from the design, because it didn't take into concern the environmental aspect of the constructions, and the operations are flowed. So the existing policy. Sorry?
No, please continue.
All right. So the existing policies, the policies exist. Some Swaminathan Commission report. There's also Kutanad package announced by the government of Kerala based on the Swaminathan Commission report, which is an excellent public policy engagement example. And it is based on ecocentric view of, also taking into attention the biodiversity, preservation of biodiversity aspect of it. But the sad truth is that it's not implemented properly like every other policies or every other laws in India. So my research or my study is to understand the gaps in the implementation of these policies, and also putting more focus on possible action. Just to give you for the because there's very less time. Just one example would be like setting up of local biodiversity management committee, like breaking down exactly this policy suggest and raising awareness in the local community. So because I come from this community, I've already started reaching out to people in my area, like local conservationists. I'm hoping to start a small movement by setting up a local biodiversity management committee, which is a requirement under the Biodiversity Act. Like the local self-governments have to do it. So we are planning to put pressure on the local self-government to do it. So yes, and I will not be able to touch each and every point, but yeah, I believe taking direct action and involving the local community who are directly affected by the problems of the area is the way ahead. That's it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Maria ji. Next presentation by Neeraj ji. And Neeraj ji, if you're ready, please share the screen.
Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, yes, it is.
Great, great. Thank you. So my name is Neeraj Bhatia, and I am a senior manager at Waste Warriors. We are a non-profit that works in solid waste management in the Indian Himalayan region. Currently, we are based out of the states of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, and our niche is we focus in the eco-sensitive, tourist areas. And my topic is basically about, what does my, packet of chips have to do with climate change or human rights, right? All of us go to a general store or a supermarket and pick up a sachet or a packet of, potato chips. What is really that got to do with climate change and human rights? So there are all types of sachets, that we go out these days to purchase, from shampoos to coffee to noodles to detergents to rice, dal, what have you. And really, the idea of a lot of these sachets when they were introduced into the market was, to target the low income, right? India being a huge country with a, significantly high population, the idea for a lot of the FMCG companies and other companies was to target these markets. Today, I think a lot of the urban areas, there is this saturation already that a lot of the organizations, corporates have reached, and they are trying to infiltrate, or have already, in fact, infiltrated the rural areas, right? Because we know over 50% of our population in India is rural, right? So they've already infiltrated, and a lot of these sachets and a lot of the products are being sold in sachet format. Today, if you see detergent and, a lot of the other products that were not normally sold in sachets, they're sold in these sachets. So what are these? These are very flexible plastic packaging, right? And they essentially come in two formats, either multi-layered and single layer, right? They come in sort of multiple layers of plastic and a single layer of plastic, right? There's your chips packet there of Lay's, anything with a silver sort of shiny coating on the inside. It has multiple layers. And like your Maggie, your typical noodle, and any sort of transparent, your biscuit, is a very single layer, right? All of you have these products at home, so do I, right? And this is sort of the way a lot of these products are targeted. So my topic is really about these single-use flexible pouches, that come in both single layer and multiple layered, right, across India, to sell small portions of basic goods, right? And FMCGs have obviously tapped this, right? This industry of low income customers in rural India, right? But what has this really got to do with climate change? What has this got to do with human rights, right? So sachets have essentially left waste management plans from the Swachh Bharat Mission guidelines defunct, right? In terms of technology and economy, because none of these sachets are recyclable, right? You can't compost them. You can't really do anything with them. So the kabadi walas or the aggregators or any agency who's looking to do waste to wealth really has no use for these products, because you can't make anything from them. They're not recyclable at all, right? You can't reuse them in any way. So what happened is the plastic waste management rules that the Ministry of the Environment, Forest and Climate Change released mentioned these particular products as part of their extended producer responsibility guidelines. Now, an EPR, which is your extended producer responsibility guidelines, is something that a lot globally was where the onus of these waste products, right? Because organizations are selling the product to the customer, but the packaging is a waste, right? So that is externalized to the actual consumer. So the onus goes back to the producer. So these EPR guidelines globally, were sort of set, and India was one of the first countries to have a very strong EPR policy and guidelines document, right? And from an environmental policy standpoint, this is where my project is focusing on, right? To understand what the EPR guidelines state for these particular sachets, right? Now, the EPR guidelines recommend that the only way to deal with the disposal of these packaging materials is to incinerate them, is to burn them, right? Now, that is really a problem for the health and the environment, right? If you talk about the EPR, right, the concept was introduced by the MOFCC, right? We all have heard from a lot of our, lecturers about how India has some very robust, policies with regards to the environment, right? And there's no doubt about that. The guiding principles of the EPR, unfortunately, though, have been blatantly violated by these major corporations because, they are selling their products that are non-recyclable, flexible, sachets, plastic most likely, they have influenced government policymakers a lot because over time, the amendments to the plastic waste rules and the EPR included not only recycling, but also co-processing. So what was co-processing? Co-processing means incineration. So what they said that, okay, you can maybe recycle some hard plastics, right? Like your Bisleri bottle, you can make clothes out of it, right? Fiber. But what happens with these biscuit and chips packets? They said, okay, you can't recycle it, but they added a provision where you can co-process it, right? So that basically means you can use it as a fuel or a raw material in cement plants, right? Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the cement industry is one of the most significant contributors to air pollution and particulate matter, right? And it's understood to be one of the most polluting industries in the world. So what has cement got to do with these, these chips packets, right? Biscuit packets. What happens is because you're not able to recycle any of these packets, right? These monolayer, single layer plastic, the EPR guidelines, the government law states that you must transport these to a cement factory where they would traditionally use, in order to convert limestone to lime in cement, they would traditionally use some sort of a fossil fuel like coal or whatnot. But maybe 10 or 20% of it can be substituted with this plastic waste, flexible plastic waste, because it has a high calorific value. If at home, if you have a chips packet or a biscuit packet, you just try to light it with your lighter and you'll see it'll light very easily, right? So because the source of a lot of these plastics, all plastics, in fact, 99% of plastics, the source of it is fossil fuels, right? The byproduct of waste of petroleum and other fossil fuel products, the byproduct and the waste of it is actually converted to these plastic materials. That's why they are supplied in ample into the market, right? And then they are used for packaging materials. So what has these packaging materials got to do with climate change and human rights? So one is from an environmental perspective, they cause emissions because they are used in cement factories, and cement factories burn them as fuel. Maybe 10 or 20% of it is burned as fuel. And it releases a lot of these dioxins and furans, which are these very carcinogenic, toxic, products that are released into the air, right? There is chemical leaching. A lot of these small flexible packaging are lost into the environment. You have opened a biscuit packet or a chips packet. You easily tear the corner of it and you just toss it out. But what happens? That small part ends up getting lost in the environment. So it just sits there and it ends up leaching, right, into the groundwater, into the soil. Obviously, burning of these plastic causes climate change, greenhouse gases, right? The huge CO2, is being released. Cement is one of the most polluting industries. Health, of course, the carcinogenic and the respiratory aspects. The waste workers who work in this particular industry that collect these kind of waste. In fact, the waste workers don't even collect flexible packages, these sachets, because they have no value in the market, right? You have to send them to cement plants, and in fact, cement plants are not interested in paying for it. You have to pay them to send it, right? That's why you have the extended producer responsibility guidelines, where the producer is actually paying for it. Then you have your land use factors, where deforestation and land use change. The littering of a lot of these packaging is literally causing a lot of change into the land use, right? Cleanup and remediation cost is very high, right? Soil is being contaminated, right? Then your waste management. As I said, the sachets are very small in size, so it's very difficult to collect them. And the informal waste workers will not collect these sachets, right? They are not interested in them. And I personally, work in a waste management company where we collect a lot of the data. And unfortunately, a lot of the recovery facilities that collect waste, uh, uh, um, our data shows that at least 50 to 60% of the waste collected is such low value waste, like sachets. And maybe you can make some money from bottles like Bisleri or Thumbs Up, but you won't be able to make, or cardboard. But there is no money at all. There is no reusability at all for these sachets, flexible plastics, and it's a huge cost on the waste management system to collect them. And there is no incentive to collect them. They end up in landfills, and there's a huge landfill management cost. And even there's a community engagement and education cost, because you want the community to segregate this. You don't want them to mix your plastic with your food waste. Socioeconomic cost. There's a huge cost with regards to the impact on household, tourism, property values. We all know, when people come from outside.
Neeraj, 1 minute to conclude.
Sure. We all know when people come from outside, they say, oh, India is very dirty and, everything is very littered. And it's a problem in India. There was a recent UN report I read that of the 4 different disposal techniques, littering, door-to-door collection into landfill, incineration or recycling, India was actually littering 40% of their waste. Even collection of our waste to dump it into a landfill was only 30%. In fact, we are littering more than we are collecting. So we are very, very, very behind in our waste journey, right? Microplastics is a huge problem. This stuff, when exposed to the elements, natural elements like sun, water, is releasing microplastic. Microplastic today has been found in human blood, in breast milk. Something as sacrosanct as breast milk, it is found in that. And then a lot of this ends up in these cement plants, where they claim they do waste to energy. But what about the chimneys that are releasing these, furans and dioxins? How much can you filter it? It is causing a lot of air pollution. So my project is essentially on these particular type of waste. And I think it's very important for us to understand when we open our bag of chips or biscuit, how really it is connected. Our level of consumerism, single-use consumerism, is connected to climate change and human rights. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Neeraj. That is a comprehensive presentation. Bhargavi ma'am, since we have gone really far with the time limits, we have a few more presentations left. We have 2 more slotted for right now, and then we have around 5 to 6 more on extension wanting to present. With that regards, and since we are nearly out of time as well, can we have another day for the left presentations and the feedback? I think it is only fair that since we've had such comprehensive presentations by everybody, that we have a full feedback session in detail as well. If it is agreeable with everybody, we can have the next session tomorrow, that is Sunday, 11:30 a.m., or another slot that, ma'am, you can suggest.
Yeah, Priyanka. First of all, I would like to congratulate everybody who's presented. Yes, I agree with you that they've been fantastic presentations, and we can only do justice if we have more time. So I'm completely fine for another session, which can be slotted either tomorrow or maybe next Saturday. I'm traveling from Monday night, so tomorrow would be best, or next Saturday.
Sure, ma'am. We will also be sharing this information. For now, please consider tomorrow 11:30 a.m. as the preferable slot for the feedback session and the presentations that are left. Neeraj, yes, please go ahead.
So my question is, a lot of us who have presented already, do we need to be there tomorrow as well, or?
I think it'll be good because you will get to hear other presentations also. And I think as part of the peer learning, it'll be good if each of you ask questions to the other presenters also. Instead of just me giving my comments and remarks, I think having everybody, it will, only enrich the entire presentation experience.
Absolutely, Miss Bhargavi, makes sense. We ought to make it very inclusive. We'll be there.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.